Hello my lovelies and welcome to today's video. I'm going to be wrapping up the books that I read in January. So we came into the new month of the new year pretty strong in terms of my reading habits. I think I read 7 out of the 9 books I had on my TBR, so I'm really happy about that. I also read like a mixture of genres and types of books, and I did a couple of buddy reads, which was awesome as well. I won't say I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in January because I've decided that I might do like a grouped video where I talk about picture books, because I read a lot of picture books now that I work in a library whenever I'm shelving and things like that. And sometimes even the books that I do for story times I like the sound of and I want to talk about them, especially if it's helpful for you guys that have little ones in your life or around you. You might find it useful to see what's interesting, what's good, maybe what's new out in terms of children's literature, fiction books, that sort of thing. So these are going to be all like the YA adult books, everything that isn't children's picture books basically, that I read during January. Know what you thought of the books, especially if you had like different opinions, you loved something that I disliked, or maybe you disliked a book that I loved. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So the first book I listened to on audiobook through my library borrowing app, and that was House of Night Volume 2 or Book 2, Betrayed by Kristen and PC Cast. This basically continues straight where Book 1 left off, which I think I read or also listened to the month prior, and we are following our main character who has enrolled in a vampire school, and her whole life is basically turned around when she gets this mark that only vampires have. And yeah, so she's thrust into this world, and of course she's like going to be the chosen one because this mark is not something that a vampire fledgling of her age group or of her lack of experience has ever had. So there's a lot of watchful eyes on her, hoping that she does great things, and others hoping to see her fail. This one I gave a 4-star. I really enjoyed the relationship that we had with the characters. I felt like the individual personalities were able to shine a little bit more, but with our main girl, like, she is just, I feel like, not focusing on the right things. And I guess teenage mind, maybe there's so much going on. I don't remember being a teenager, but yeah, there's so much going on that you kind of overwhelmed by things, and you maybe won't necessarily will be focusing on the right things. But there was a lot of strange romancy things in this that was a little bit strange, a little bit odd, and definitely immoral. Yeah, I had a good time in general. I really enjoyed kind of getting thrown more into the vampire lore, seeing a bit more of their rituals and practices, and also kind of seeing the seed grow of not all being what it seems, with characters you thought you could trust kind of coming to light. That, I think that was a phrase actually, not all in the light is good and not all in the dark is bad, or something like that. Basically, some characters come into light that they're not all what they seem. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, 4 stars. I will definitely continue on with the third book. I've got that downloaded as an audiobook again. I'm probably just going to read all of them as audiobooks at this point. So the next book was a buddy read with the lovely Deborah from Hills of Books. This is our second one in a row, I want to say, and I was supposed to have finished it in December. I just didn't get around to doing that, so I polished it off in January, and that is Heather Fawcett's Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely drawn in by the cover, and the blurb is definitely something that I thought I would love, but it left me wanting a little bit. So I didn't have this as like a 5-star prediction or anything, but definitely in the back of my mind I thought it was going to be up there and be something that I absolutely would love. But in actuality, it ended up being like a 3-star read for me. In this story, we are following Emily, who is, she's a particular kind of researcher, scholar. What do they call her? But it's a word that describes the studying of fairy folklore and stories, I do believe. So she's that. And she is, oh hello Elsa, she is currently going out on an expedition to research the last piece of information she needs for her book that she's bringing out, which is the Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is the first of its kind. And she goes to this very remote, cold destination to finish off that research. Here you see lots of their local traditions and their folklores and their superstitions as she builds up this encyclopedia that she is wanting to publish. You also see this banter and this kind of rivals to lovers relationship between her and her academic nemesis, Wendell Brambley, who is definitely more than you're bargaining for. And yeah, I really did enjoy the story. I thought the writing was great. I loved the diary kind of aspect of it, kind of with footnotes. It felt academic, journal based. But also like diary entry in that regard, so it was an interesting marry of the two, both like scholarly and personal. And I just loved the exploration of the magical world of the fae folk, but it just didn't hook me as much as I was hoping it would. I didn't super connect to our characters, particularly Emily. I thought I would kind of fall in love with her a little bit more, but yeah, it just left me wanting. There was something that was just lacking from it. It was a solid story, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't maybe what I was anticipating. I do have the sequel out from the library that I've borrowed, and I've downloaded the audiobook for it as well. So I will get to it. I was intending to get to it weeks ago, but I've just not had a chance yet, I guess. But yeah, so I don't know if I'll keep hold of my copy. I definitely won't be buying more to keep, so we shall see. This is a gorgeous Fairy Loot edition though. Next up was a book I was on the book tour for. This is Slumber Nevermore by R.J. Garcia, and it is a series of kind of dark, haunting, strange short stories. I want to say there's 12 or 13 short stories all in all, and this one I gave a 2 out of 5 stars. It's definitely a good contender for like a beginner into the horror kind of genre. If you're not sure what kind of vibe you're vibing with yet, this will probably cover a few different bases that you kind of situated on what sort of things you're looking for going into like the more weirder horror fiction, whether you like more character driven stories or plot based things. I just feel like quite a few of them wasn't as like frightening as I was expecting it to be, or captivating. And I know they're short stories, so you only have very limited like a window of time to kind of present this story and capture your audience. I get that, but I just felt like the majority felt very flat for me. There were a few standout stories within the collection that I highlighted in my Storygraph and Goodreads review if you would like to check out the written version. But yeah, it's definitely something I would probably recommend if you're just getting into like more darker reads, I would say. But it didn't necessarily inspire super excitement in me, shall we say. So the next 3 books are picture books that I said I would save for another video, so let's move on to the next buddy read I had with my in real life friend Andy, and it was so much fun. I definitely took longer to read it, and he was like, dude, when have you finished? I need to talk about it with you. Let me show you that book. It was Tender as the Flesh, and of course I'm going to cop out again and say I've got a video review dedicated to this already where I go into depth about this story. It was a whirlwind of emotion and headfuckery, honestly, and it was great. I recommend it if you've got a strong stomach and like to question things in society and think of what ifs to the extreme. This will probably be for you. I will leave it there, and I will link the video in the cards when that is live to be watched. Definitely join me on that video if you have read it, because I need to talk with some more people about what the heck happened in that story. Okay, switching it to a much lighter read now. I finally started the Miss Marvel series of comics, of course beginning with No Normal. This is created by Wilson and Alfona, and I had in all intents and purposes intended to read this before going into the TV series when it came out, like what, 4 or 5 years ago now, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I feel like it's quite different to the TV show that was on Disney Plus. In terms of what Miss Marvel can do, or at least what she can do early on. There's a lot that, I don't know how to express it, that maybe the show doesn't explain or go into as much depth. So I was a little bit confused as to the extent of her powers when I was reading this. Like, I didn't know she could do that, I didn't know she could do that, what is this, you know what I mean? Because my only exposure to her prior to the comics were through the TV show and then the subsequent Marvel's movie, right? But It just, again, was another one of those lackluster reads for me, unfortunately. I think potentially had I read this before watching the TV show, because I just really loved the show, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more, and had like just a different perspective on it. But I think it's now at that point where it's hard not to compare it between this and the show. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult in that way. That's why I prefer to read things before consuming the media. Do you know what I mean? Typically, anyway. I did end up giving this one a 2 out of 5 stars. I'm really sorry, I keep shaking it about, and I know it's got a glary shiny cover. I'm so sorry. I'll try and stop doing that. But yeah, we're following, and I just instantly went and did it again, didn't I? We're following Kamala Khan, who is an ordinary girl from Jersey City, until she is not. She somehow stumbles into this fog, and I believe it's the fog that turns her into a superhero or gives her superhero powers. I can't remember how she got it in the TV show, but yeah, it was interesting to see the differences and the similarities. And again, it's probably a series that I won't continue buying. I mean, the bulk of the copies that I have at the moment have come from the library, so I have volume 1 and volume 2 that I own, but I probably will pass those on once I read up all the volumes that I can get hold of, you know, because I don't have a strong attachment to the comic, shall we say. But glad to have read it, glad to have seen differences and just kind of consume a different version, I guess, of Ms. Marvel. Next up, I was kind of like on the book tour or the ARC review tour thing for a new release that came out on the 28th of January, and that is An Insidious Inheritance by Amelie West. So congratulations to her on her indie debut. I think she was doing everything on her own from what I understand. It's available on KU and Amazon, like, generally. So yeah, I think she is doing everything on her own. So good luck to her and well done on the release of her book. This is kind of like a I'm really bad with eras. I want to say 1920s Prohibition era of America. Cozy mystery, paranormal activity within that mystery. Story about Clara, who out of the blue receives like a notification, a letter from like an estate agent, really, someone who's dealing with her dad's estate because he's passed away, her estranged father, and has just left everything to her. So she goes on this kind of mission to go into this quiet little cozy village to see what's going on. The idea for her really is just to handle the affairs, sell off the inn, which is what was left to her, quickly, get some money together so she's not like living paycheck to paycheck, and go back home. But of course, more unfolds as the story progresses. We have a love interest, we have some strange happenings within the inn that she's staying in, which is also happens to be the one she's inherited and is trying to sell. She's stumbling on mysteries about the father that she didn't really know, some suspicions about what was going on within that inn, what was happening, some illegal activity, and she's being haunted by ghostly apparitions that she thinks is trying to tell her something or warn her against something. And yeah, I thought it was a really fun story. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a really solid debut novel. And I really liked the atmosphere and the ambience that Amelie managed to kind of imbue within the story. I thought Clara was an interesting character. I wasn't super like invested in her or like super connected, should I say, but I was so intrigued, generally speaking, as to where the story was going, what she would do next. So yeah, I was invested in her, but I wasn't connected, is what I really meant to say, in terms of like falling in love. Do you know what I mean? But she was a strong character, and I loved that she was a strong female character in this time period as well, and that she showed that sort of fighting against your stereotypical behavior and prejudice that you would get from just sexism, basically, yeah, from people that have sexist ideals. So that was a good theme that was really shown well. Like, she didn't just take it, she kind of spoke against that, you know, within everyday discussions and goings about. But yeah, that was that book. It's the first in the Clara mystery series. Clara, I think it's her surname, and then mysteries. I would definitely read the second one, so fingers crossed that everything goes well and smooth with the writing process for that book. I think the author is also doing a Dracula retelling as well, so it's something I would definitely be eager to read. Okay, we are down to the last 2 books for January now, and this last one before the last one, the second to last one, there we go, is another buddy read, and that was with Deborah once again. This was The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake, and the Atlas 6 we read last month together. Oh no, the month before, I think it was November, we read that together. I absolutely loved it. I think it was middle of the road for Deborah. This time round, Deborah DNF'd, and I think looked up a spoiler synopsis to see how the rest of the story goes, so I don't think we'll be reading the final book together. And to be honest, I can see, it sounds really harsh because I really did enjoy it, but I can see why, because this was not the 5-star that the Atlas 6 was for me. I think I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, which is kind of underwhelming and disappointing when you think about it, especially comparing it to this standout novel that I thought the Atlas 6 was. I thought it was so clever and innovative and just academic, and just kind of academic for vibes, but also had a little bit of that academic substance as well. Like, everybody seemed pretentious in the best way, but also just generally intelligent. This one, I felt like it suffered a little bit maybe from second book syndrome. I don't know. It's weird to say because a lot of things happened. The story really progressed in the plot. Characters had some amazing development. Particularly, I loved seeing more of Gideon, first point of view from his perspective. And I really loved the direction of Libby's story. I thought she really came into herself as a character and just learnt to shed her skin a little bit and stand up for herself and basically become who she is meant to be, you know. But again, there was something in this that just did not tick all the boxes, just didn't give me that addictive quality of itchy fingers that I needed to pick it back up as soon as I put it back down, you know, which is what book 1 had for me. So I will read the 3rd book. I don't know if I actually own a copy of the 3rd book. I don't think I do. So I think my idea originally, scouring my shelves, I don't think I have the 3rd book. My idea was just to solely read the audiobook, maybe borrow the physical book out of the library, because I have enjoyed reading and listening at the same time, because it's got pictures in it, and I like pictures and I like to see the characters, and it's not many pictures, but kind of like at every part there's a couple of character studies. And I think I will miss that experience just listening to it. And I also find, because some of it is so convoluted and pretentious and intelligent, I guess, having my eyes on the page for a lot of it whilst the words are flooding my head helps me to absorb what's being said. Do you know what I mean? But if I don't get the book from the library physically, then I'll just have to do with the audiobook. That's totally fine. I'm sure I'll be fine, because honestly, even though it was super handy and enjoyable to have the physical book and do that kind of blended reading, a lot of the time I did also just put it on as an audiobook, and that was fine. Do you know what I mean? So I think I'll be fine. That was so rambly. Yeah, so underwhelming compared to the Atlas 6, but still such great plot development, I would say, and character growth. And wrapping up this video with another 3-star read, but one that was still fun as well. This is The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Battle for the Pumpkin King, and this is basically the kind of prequel to Oogie. Sorry, this is another glary kind of cover. It's basically the prequel to Oogie's and Jack's friendship. Did that make sense? No, it's the prequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas, the movie, one of my favourite movies. I do love that film. But it shows that they were friends to begin with, and the competition to be the next Pumpkin King kind of ruined that, but also what else kind of spurred between them to fracture their friendship and make it kind of irreparable. I did think it was going to have more depth than it did. I thought there was going to be much more to it than just horse sportsmanship and jealousy, shall we say. but that was kind of the focus. But it was fun. It was really cool to see like younger versions, less experienced versions of the characters we know as distinguished older individuals in the movie. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing them a little bit more, particularly for Oogie Boogie, like a little bit more unsure of themselves. I mean, he's still filled with so much charisma, if you can call it that, and confidence, but just that uncertainty of childhood, I guess. I don't really know how old they're supposed to be here, but they're definitely like younger, you know. And yeah, the illustrations were great in here. It feels like you're watching the movie, if that makes sense. Obviously it's a different story, but the illustrations were straight out of the movie. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars for this. Again, I'm such a Tim Burton fan with this film, but it might be one that I might not keep. And I have been kind of sitting with this in my head. This is kind of like an aside now, of not keeping every single book I read if it doesn't fill me with absolute joy or invoke like strong emotions, whether that's awful emotions or great emotions, right? And I think it will help me declutter my collection a little bit, which has grown rapidly. I'm on the slow decline to chilling the fuck out now, but I've still got piles of books on the floor, double stacked shelves. I know, first world problems, I get it, but I do want to kind of regulate my money, my spending habits. And the collection, you know, collecting books is a hobby in itself for me, right? Reading it's a different thing. But I want to make sure that the books that I look at, I'll be like, yeah, that reminds me of this, or I can remember that, because it got to a point where I used to remember every book that I read, like the details really well, and now I don't. I don't know if that's just coming with age, or if it's just the sheer amount that I read, and some of them are quite forgettable. Like, I don't want that to be the case anymore, you know. And I used to always want like the trophy of the book of reading, which is totally fine, and I still do, but I think I just want to decrease my trophy cabinet just a little, you know what I mean? Anyway, that was a ramble. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you, Elsa, for joining me. Oh, her ears peeked up. Did I scare you? I'm so sorry. Yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books yourself, and I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye. I'm really sorry. I have to quickly come on here and like highlight the fact that that enclosure behind me is empty. There's no hamster in there now. This one is, hello, Cedar. Autumn, my little buddy, he passed away the other day, and I had to just clear it out because I just needed to clear it out. If you don't know, I was an animal technician before working in the library, and my whole career practically had been working with animals. So when my last job's animal room at a college was dissolving, I rehomed all the animals, and some of them I was able to bring home and look after just in a retirement, chill them out, let them live their little rest of their lives with me. And Autumn was one of those. He was one of the animals that was born there, and I just bonded with him straight away. And yeah, he passed away recently, and yeah, my eyes kept glancing up as I was filming, and I knew I shouldn't sorry, I'm getting emotional now. Whoa. I knew I shouldn't have filmed like against it, because usually I can see him running around or his dad running around. Yeah, my eyes just kept glancing up, like, yeah. Anyway, sorry to randomly end there on a low note, but have a good one. Bye.